There comes a time in life when we find ourselves trapped not by walls or chains, but by the silent, private weight of our own minds. We replay moments that no longer exist, cling to words never spoken, and carry wounds that time alone cannot heal. It's as if we are haunted by echoes of the past, bound by invisible threads woven from regret, loss, and longing. But what if this suffering isn't caused by the events themselves, but by our refusal to release them? The Stoics taught that pain is real, but suffering is a choice. And in that choice lies our freedom. The question is, are you ready to let go? 1. The silent prison of the mind. We do not suffer from the past itself, but from the chains we forge around it. The human mind, vast and powerful, is capable of great wisdom, yet it can also become a cage-zone where we voluntarily lock ourselves away. A betrayal, a loss, a moment of shame. These are not just events that happened, they become echoes that refuse to fade, replaying over and over, shaping our reality long after they should have passed. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus once said, "Men are disturbed not by things but by the view which they take of them." Our suffering is not born from the event itself, but from the way we continue to relive it, feed it, and give it power over us. Every time we revisit the wound, we make it fresh again. Like a fire that needs wood to burn, our suffering continues only because we keep adding fuel. But why do we hold on to pain? Why do we revisit memories that hurt us, dissecting them, replaying conversations, rewriting what was said in hopes of a different ending? The answer is simple. The mind clings to what it knows. Even suffering, when familiar, can feel safer than the unknown. The past is a fixed story, something we can touch and define. The future, however, is uncertain, and uncertainty, to the mind, feels like a threat. This is why we hesitate to let go. The past, no matter how painful, feels like home. But in doing so, we make a tragic mistake. We allow what was to dictate what is. We let ghosts of old wounds shape our present, whispering doubts into our ears, keeping us trapped in a world that no longer exists. So how do we break free? The first step is recognition. We must become aware of our own mental loops, observe the thoughts we gravitate toward, the emotions that keep us stuck. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When painful memories surface, we must see them for what they are, echoes, not reality. They hold no power unless we give it to them. The second step is shifting focus. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What can this teach me?" Every hardship carries a lesson. A heartbreak teaches us resilience. A failure sharpens our wisdom. A betrayal reveals who we can truly trust. But to see these lessons, we must stop looking at the past through the lens of loss and start seeing it as a source of growth. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending the past never happened. It means making peace with it. It means acknowledging that pain was once real, but it does not need to define us. The present moment is the only place where life happens. The past is a memory. The future is a possibility. The only reality we have is now. Imagine standing at the edge of a river, watching leaves float by. Each leaf is a memory, a thought, a moment of pain. You can reach out, grab one, cling to it, analyze its details, and refuse to let it go. or you can simply acknowledge its presence, but allow it to drift away. This is the practice of letting go, not suppressing, not ignoring, but allowing thoughts to pass without attaching ourselves to them. Freedom begins in the mind. The key is already in your hands. The question is, are you ready to unlock the door? 2. The illusion of control. Letting go of what was never ours. We spend much of our lives grasping at control over people, outcomes, the way others see us. We believe that if we try hard enough, plan well enough, or care deeply enough, we can shape the world to fit our desires. But this is a dangerous illusion, one that traps us in endless frustration and suffering. The Stoics understood this well. They taught that there are only two kinds of things in life, those within our control and those beyond it. Everything outside of our thoughts, our actions, and our responses belongs to the latter category. Yet, instead of focusing on what is truly within our power, we exhaust ourselves trying to control what was never ours to command other people's choices, the past, the future, even the way life unfolds. The more we cling to this illusion, the more we suffer. We beg for people to stay, thinking that our love alone should be enough to hold them. We replay conversations in our minds, believing that if we had said something different, the outcome would have changed. We try to force situations to unfold as we wish, only to be met with resistance, disappointment, and pain. But control is like trying to hold water in our hands. The tighter we grip, the faster it slips through our fingers. What happens when we finally accept this truth? At first, there is fear. To acknowledge our lack of control feels like stepping into the unknown with no safety net. If we are not in control, then who is? If we cannot dictate outcomes, then what can we rely on? These questions stir discomfort because they force us to confront an unsettling reality. Life moves according to its own rhythm, indifferent to our wishes. Yet, within this realization lies our greatest freedom. When we stop trying to control the uncontrollable, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. We no longer waste energy on changing people who do not want to change. We no longer replay the past, hoping it will somehow rewrite itself. We no longer tie our happiness to circumstances that are fickle and fleeting. Instead, we turn inward to what has always been within our power, our perspective, our choices, and the way we meet life as it comes. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is not a call to passivity, but to wisdom. It means understanding that true strength does not come from bending the world to our will, but from mastering our own mind. Letting go of control is not giving up. It is choosing where to place our energy. It is shifting from resistance to adaptation, from frustration to acceptance. It is the difference between fighting the ocean's waves and learning to swim with the current. So, how do we practice this? First, we must identify what is outside our control. The opinions of others, the choices of loved ones, the outcome of our efforts, these do not belong to us. Recognizing this is the first step to peace. Second, we must learn to surrender not in weakness, but in trust. When we release our grip, we make space for life to unfold in ways we never expected. Some doors must close so that others may open. Some people must leave so that we can grow. Some failures must happen so that we may learn. Finally, we must remind ourselves that our peace does not come from controlling life, but from mastering our response to it. A storm may rage outside, but we decide whether to let it shake us. Life will not always go as we wish. People will not always love us as we hope. The future will not always unfold as we plan. But this does not mean we are powerless. It means our power lies elsewhere, in the ability to meet each moment with wisdom, to embrace change rather than resist it, and to find peace in knowing that we were never meant to control everything. When we stop chasing control, we gain something far greater: freedom. 3. Breaking free from the echoes of the mind. The mind is a powerful force capable of brilliance, but also of destruction. Like a river carving deep grooves into the earth, our thoughts, when repeated, become pathways that shape how we experience reality. If we are not careful, these pathways turn into prisons, trapping us in an endless cycle of regret, resentment, and what-ifs. How often do we find ourselves revisiting the same painful memories, reliving the same wounds, and rehearsing conversations that have long since ended? A betrayal from years ago, a mistake we cannot undo, a love lost to time. We carry them as if, by holding on to them, we might somehow change the past. But this is an illusion. What's done is done. What remains is only our mind's refusal to let go. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus once said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them." In other words, suffering does not come from the past itself, but from our insistence on replaying it. The more we dwell on certain thoughts, the stronger they become, like a well-worn path in the forest, trodden so many times that it becomes the only road we know. But here is the truth: we are not our thoughts. We are the ones who observe them. If we wish to be free, we must break the cycle. The first step is awareness. We must learn to recognize when we are lost in the loop of repetitive thinking. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me, or is it harming me? Does dwelling on this change anything? The moment we catch ourselves trapped in these patterns, we create an opening, an opportunity to step out of the cycle rather than be consumed by it. The second step is redirection. The mind cannot be empty, but it can be guided. When a destructive thought arises, we must replace it with something constructive. The Stoics called this voluntary displacement, the act of shifting focus to something meaningful and productive. Instead of replaying the past, immerse yourself in the present. Engage in something that demands your full attention: a conversation, a creative pursuit, a physical activity. Third, we must train the mind like we would a muscle. Just as the body strengthens through repetition, so too does the mind. If we constantly feed it negativity, that becomes our default state. But if we make a habit of redirecting our focus, choosing presence over rumination, action over stagnation, then over time, the grip of our repetitive thoughts weakens. The path in the forest begins to disappear, overgrown with new growth, leading us toward clarity instead of suffering. Finally, we must embrace the power of mindfulness. The past is unchangeable, and the future is uncertain. The only place we can truly live is in the now. When thoughts arise that attempt to drag us backward, bring yourself back to the present. Feel the air on your skin, the weight of the moment beneath your feet. Listen to the world around you. The present is always within reach. We need only return to it. Breaking free from repetitive thoughts is not about suppressing them or forcing them away. It is about recognizing that they are just thoughts, nothing more. They have no power beyond what we give them, and the moment we stop feeding them, they begin to fade. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not the echoes of old wounds. You are something far greater, the one who chooses where to place your attention, the one who decides what thoughts are worthy of your time. And in that choice, you find your freedom. 4. The art of detachment, releasing what no longer serves you. We suffer not because life is cruel, but because we refuse to let go. We hold on to things long past their time, relationships that have ended, dreams that did not unfold as we hoped, identities that no longer fit who we have become. And yet, we cling. We build monuments in our minds to what was, mistaking nostalgia for truth, regret for responsibility. But the past is not a place we can live in. It is only a shadow, a whisper of something that once was but is no longer here. The Stoics understood that attachment is the root of suffering. Seneca wrote, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a living man." Though he spoke of death, his words apply to all things in life. To fear losto, resist the inevitable impermanence of everything, is to live in chains. We cannot move forward while our hands are full of what we refuse to release. But letting go is not forgetting. It is not indifference. It is not an act of coldness or dismissal. It is an act of wisdom. Detachment does not mean we do not love, care, or cherish. It means we do so without possession. We love without clinging. We experience without expecting permanence. We embrace what comes, knowing it may leave, and we release what leaves, knowing something new will come. This is the nature of life. This is the rhythm of existence. Yet, we resist. We resist because attachment feels safe. We tell ourselves that if we hold on tightly enough, we can keep things as they are. But this is an illusion. The tighter we grip, the more life slips through our fingers. The river flows whether we fight it or not. The only choice we have is whether to exhaust ourselves swimming against the current or to let go and move with the flow. So how do we practice detachment? First, we must recognize what we are holding on to. Ask yourself, what am I unwilling to release? What past hurt, what old identity, what fading connection am I still gripping as if it defines me? Awareness is the first step. You cannot release what you do not acknowledge. Second, we must reframe our thinking. Instead of seeing detachment as loss, see it as freedom. You are not losing something, you are making space. Space for peace. Space for new experiences. Space for a lighter heart. Imagine carrying a heavy bag for years, believing it is part of you. Then, one day, you set it down. The relief is overwhelming. The weight was never part of you, was only something you carried. Third, we must learn to trust life. Detachment requires faith not in some mystical force, but in the simple truth that life continues, that joy follows sorrow, that endings make way for beginnings, that we do not need to force or hold or chase only to meet each moment as it comes and let it pass when it is time. Finally, we must return to the present. Much of our suffering comes from attachment to what was. But the past is gone. The future is uncertain. The only reality is now. Be here. Feel the breath in your lungs, the weight of your body in this moment, the sound of life happening around you. Let that be enough. Let that be where you place your heart, your focus, your presence. When we master the art of detachment, we do not lose, we gain. We gain clarity, peace, resilience. We gain the ability to love fully without fear, to experience deeply without possession, to walk through life unburdened by what we cannot change. And in that freedom, we finally find ourselves 5. Forgiveness, the ultimate freedom. There is a weight we carry that no one else can see. It is not made of stone or metal, yet it burdens us all the same. It is resentment, anger, and the silent desire for justice against those who have wronged us. We hold on to it tightly, believing that if we let go, we are letting them win. But the truth is, we are the only ones suffering. The one who harmed us moves on, while we remain shackled to a past that still burns. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca once said, "To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you." We believe that holding on to pain protects us, that by keeping the memory of betrayal alive, we guard ourselves from future harm. But in reality, resentment is a poison we drink, expecting the other person to suffer. The only thing it destroys is our own peace. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. It is not about excusing harm or pretending that pain never existed. It is about refusing to let that pain control us any longer. It is about choosing freedom over bitterness, clarity over resentment, and peace over the endless replaying of past wounds. But how do we forgive? First, we must recognize that forgiveness is not for them, it is for us. It is not about whether they deserve it. It is about whether we deserve peace. When we forgive, we take back control of our own minds. We stop letting someone else's actions define our emotions, dictate our thoughts, and drain our energy. Second, we must separate the event from the story we tell ourselves about it. The past cannot be undone, but how we interpret it is within our power. Ask yourself, am I replaying this pain because I believe it still has power over me? If so, recognize that the only place the past exists now is in your mind. The moment you decide to change the way you see it, its hold on you begins to weaken. Third, we must release the need for revenge. The desire for justice is natural, but it is often an illusion. We think that if we make the other person suffer, we will finally feel relief. But more often than not, vengeance leaves us empty. True power is found not in punishing another, but in proving that they no longer have control over us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. To heal is the greatest victory." Finally, we must accept that people act according to their nature, their pain, and their limitations. This does not mean excusing their actions, but understanding that human beings are flawed. Some hurt others out of ignorance, some out of their own suffering, some because they simply do not know any better. If we live expecting perfection from people, we will always be disappointed. To forgive is to free ourselves. It is to stop carrying what no longer serves us. It is to reclaim the energy we have wasted on anger and transform it into something better: wisdom, growth, and inner peace. Let go, not because they deserve it, but because you do. 6. The wisdom of impermanence, embracing life's unavoidable truth. Everything you love will change. Everything you fear will pass. Everything you are clinging to, no matter how tightly, will one day slip through your fingers. This is not a tragedy, it is the nature of life itself. We suffer not because things change, but because we expect them to stay the same. We believe that love will last forever, that success will always remain, that the people in our lives will never leave. And yet, nothing in this world is permanent. The seasons shift, the tides rise and fall, and we too are constantly evolving. The Stoics understood this deeply. They practiced memento mori, the reminder that everything, including life itself, is temporary. This was not meant to inspire fear but clarity. When we accept impermanence, We begin to cherish the present moment instead of clinging to the past or fearing the future. Seneca wrote, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." He did not mean that life is sorrowful, but rather that resisting its nature only leads to suffering. The more we fight change, the more we suffer when it inevitably comes. But if we embrace it, we find freedom. So how do we learn to accept impermanence? First, we must stop taking things for granted. Look around you. The people you love, the experiences you enjoy, even the struggles you face, and none of them will last forever. This is not a reason to despair, but a reason to be present. Instead of assuming we have unlimited time, we must appreciate what we have while it is here. Every sunrise, every conversation, every fleeting moment is a gift. Treat it as such. Second, we must release our grip on what was. So much of our suffering comes from clinging to things that have already passed. We mourn old versions of ourselves, past relationships, opportunities that are no longer available. But just as the leaves must fall for new growth to emerge, we too must allow the past to make way for what comes next. Holding on to what is gone does not bring it back, it only keeps us from living fully in the present. Third, we must make peace with uncertainty. The future is unknown, and no amount of planning or control can guarantee outcomes. But this is not something to fear. It is an invitation to trust in life's unfolding. The unknown holds not just loss, but possibility. The doors that close make way for ones we cannot yet see. The endings we grieve often lead to beginnings we never expected. Finally, we must remind ourselves that impermanence does not mean meaninglessness. Just because something does not last forever does not mean it was not valuable. A flower that blooms for a single day is no less beautiful than a mountain that has stood for centuries. Life is precious because it is fleeting. To accept impermanence is to live without fear. It is to love without attachment, to experience fully without grasping, and to trust that whatever comes, we have the strength to meet it. Do not mourn the passing of time. Instead, honor it by living deeply, loving fully, and embracing each moment as it comes. For nothing lasts, and that is what makes everything so incredibly valuable. 7. Finding purpose beyond suffering, transforming pain into strength. Pain is an unavoidable part of life. Loss, failure, betrayal, these experiences shape us, leaving scars that may never fully fade. But suffering is a choice. It is what happens when we allow pain to define us, when we let it settle into our bones and dictate the story we tell about ourselves. The Stoics understood this well. They did not seek to escape hardship, but to use it as a tool for growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, pain is not merely something to endure, it is something to be transformed. It is raw material, waiting to be shaped into wisdom, resilience, and purpose. Yet most of us resist this truth. When faced with suffering, we ask, "Why me?" We replay the past, searching for ways it could have been different. But this only deepens our wounds. The real question is not, "Why did this happen?" but "What can I do with it?" Because pain, when used correctly, has power. Think of the strongest people you know, the ones who radiate wisdom, who carry themselves with quiet confidence, who seem unshaken by life's storms. Do you think they were born that way? Number. They became that way because they endured, because they faced suffering and refused to let it break them. So how do we find purpose beyond suffering? First, we must shift our perspective. Pain is not a punishment. It is a lesson, an invitation to grow. Instead of seeing hardship as something unfair, see it as something necessary, an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, more resilient. Every difficulty carries within it the seed of transformation, but only if we choose to nurture it. Second, we must take action. Suffering thrives in stagnation. The longer we sit with our pain, doing nothing, the heavier it becomes. But when we channel it into something meaningful, into learning, creating, helping others, we reclaim our power. We turn wounds into wisdom, grief into gratitude, loss into legacy. Third, we must detach from the identity of the victim. It is easy to let pain define us, to believe that because we have suffered, we are somehow broken. But we are not what has happened to us. We are what we choose to become despite it. Strength is not the absence of struggle. It is forged in the fire of adversity. Finally, we must embrace the unknown. The past is gone, and the future is unwritten. What lies ahead is not just more pain, but possibility. What if your suffering is the thing that leads you to your greatest purpose? What if the very thing that broke you is what ultimately sets you free? Pain will come, that is inevitable. But suffering, that is a decision. Choose to rise, choose to use your pain not as a prison, but as a foundation for something greater. Because the story is not over, and the next chapter is yours to write. 8. The present is all that exists, freeing yourself from the past and future. The past is a memory. The future is an illusion. The only moment that truly belongs to us is now. And yet, most of us spend our lives anywhere but here. We dwell on old wounds, replaying what has already happened as if we could change it. Or we anxiously construct a future built on fear, believing that by worrying enough, we can control what has yet to come. In doing so, we abandon the only place where life actually happens, the present. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not because the past and future do not matter, but because they do not belong to us. The past cannot be altered, and the future cannot be guaranteed. The only power we have is in this momento. We think, how we act, how we respond. But why is it so hard to stay present? Because the mind is addicted to distraction. It clings to the past because it is familiar, even if painful. It fixates on the future because uncertainty feels threatening. We think that by obsessing over what was or what might be, we are protecting ourselves. In reality, we are only pulling ourselves further away from life itself. So how do we return to the present? First, recognize the illusion. When your mind drifts into regret or fear, pause. Ask yourself, is this happening right now? Most of our suffering is self-inflicted, born from thoughts that exist only in our minds. The moment you see this, you regain control. Second, train your awareness. The present moment is always available to us, but we must choose to return to it. Feel the air in your lungs. Listen to the sounds around you. Notice the sensation of your feet on the ground. The body is always in the present, the mind is what strays. By anchoring yourself in physical reality, you pull yourself back into now. Third, embrace what is, rather than what could have been. Regret is the refusal to accept what has already happened. Anxiety is the fear of what has yet to unfold. Neither changes reality. Acceptance, however, does. It allows us to engage fully with life as it is, instead of being trapped in what was or what if. Fourth, simplify. Much of our distraction comes from overstimulation, too many thoughts, too many worries, too much noise. The more we simplify our lives, the easier it becomes to be present. Declutter your mind, your environment, your expectations. Make space for what matters. Life is not waiting for us somewhere in the future, nor does it live in the echoes of the past. It is here, now, in this breath, in this moment. The question is, are you here to live it? 9. The power of inner peace. Mastering the one battle that truly matters. There is a war that rages within most of you's, a war against reality. We fight against the past, unwilling to accept what has already happened. We battle the future, trying to control what is beyond our reach. We resist change, resist uncertainty, resist discomfort. And in doing so, we create endless turmoil within ourselves. But what if we stopped fighting? What if, instead of trying to control everything outside of us, we turned inward and mastered our own mind? The Stoics believed that true power is not found in controlling others or shaping external circumstances. It is found in mastering oneself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Inner peace is not given to us by the world. It is something we cultivate from within. It is not found in wealth, status, or validation, but in our ability to remain calm and steady, no matter what life throws at us. Yet most of us seek peace in the wrong places. We tell ourselves, "I will be at peace when I achieve success, when I find love, when my problems disappear." But peace does not come from perfect circumstances. It comes from learning to be unshaken despite them. So how do we cultivate inner peace? First, we must stop resisting life. Much of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our refusal to accept them. We wish things had happened differently. We wish people were different. We wish life would go the way we imagined. But reality does not bend to our wishes. The more we resist, the more we suffer. The moment we accept life as it is, not as we want it to be, we free ourselves. Second, we must detach from external validation. If our peace depends on the opinions of others, we will always be at their mercy. If it depends on success, we will always be chasing. True peace comes when we no longer need approval, when we no longer measure our worth by achievements, but by the steadiness of our own mind. Third, we must master our thoughts. The mind, if left unchecked, will run wild, replaying past mistakes, creating imaginary fears, clinging to what no longer serves us. But we are not our thoughts. We are the ones who observe them. The moment we learn to step back and not be controlled by every passing emotion, we reclaim our inner world. Fourth, we must simplify. Chaos is not just external, it is internal. Too many distractions, too many desires, too many unnecessary worries. The more we declutter our minds, our schedules, our attachments, the more space we create for peace. The fewer things we depend on, the freer we become. Finally, we must trust in the unfolding of life. The future is uncertain. We do not know what will happen, nor can we control it. But we can choose how we meet each moment. We can either greet life with fear or with faith, with resistance or with flow. Peace is not the absence of difficulty, it is the ability to remain steady despite it. There will always be storms, there will always be chaos outside of us. But the real question is, will there be chaos within us? Because the world will not always be calm, but we can be. And in that calm, we find the greatest power of all, the power of inner peace. Conclusion: the freedom of letting go. Suffering is not found in the events of our lives, but in our refusal to release them. We cling to the past, try to control the uncontrollable, and allow repetitive thoughts to imprison us. But the truth is, freedom has always been within our reach. It begins the moment we choose to let go. Let go of what you cannot change. Let go of the illusion of control. Let go of the need for approval, the weight of resentment, and the fear of uncertainty. True peace is not found in fixing the world around us, but in mastering the world within us. This is not an easy path. It requires awareness, discipline, and courage. But those who choose it will find something far greater than temporary happiness. They will find resilience, clarity, and an unshakable sense of inner strength. Now, I want to hear from you. What is one thing you are working on letting go of? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's continue this journey together. If you found value in this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insights on Stoicism and the art of living with wisdom. See you in the next video.